After that, the girl told the guy to rest and not stress about anyone coming into his room, promising she'd be back a little later with dinner. Celine stepped outside and couldn't shake the feeling. It was the first time she'd ever seen someone look that cold, and honestly, it stuck with her. She wasn't trying to force him into anything. She just wanted him to slowly open up, bit by bit. At the very least, she was relieved he'd woken up. The next day, Celine came rushing back to check on him, all bright and upbeat, but the young man stayed quiet, barely reacting to her at all. She cracked the window open, figuring some fresh air might help, but 3 days passed after he regained consciousness and he still hadn't touched his food. She even ate in front of him to prove it wasn't poisoned, but that didn't work either. Watching him waste away scared her. If this kept up, he'd starve to death, so she tried everything she could to get him to eat, finally convincing herself that maybe it was his injuries keeping him stuck in bed and killing his appetite. She told him she'd leave the food tray on the nearby table and come back later, and every time Celine stepped out of that room, she forced herself not to lose hope and to keep going with the same mindset. That evening, she came back with dinner and a few flowers she'd picked from the garden, and later on, she returned again with clean clothes and fresh underwear. The next day played out exactly the same as the ones before. Every single day, she showed up, brought him food, helped with his clothes, then quietly left. It ate at her that he still hadn't touched a single bite, so much so that she even apologized to the cook for making him work for nothing, though Jenna tried to reassure her, saying hunger would win eventually. Even the servants noticed how hard she was trying and felt a little heavy about how things were turning out. Late that night, Celine went back to her room, collapsed on the bed, and buried her face in a pillow, her motivation slowly slipping as she replayed everything in her head, wondering if all her effort was pointless, then immediately shutting that thought down because she refused to give in. Still, she knew the truth. If this kept up, the boy would die, and from her past life she understood that total isolation only breeds despair. So the next morning she came back to him with a wide smile and fresh food, while the guy just sat there in silence, staring ahead as time dragged on. By the 5th day after he woke up, the curse symptoms were fading, but without food, his death was basically just a matter of time. So Celine finally decided to be a little more forceful and feed him herself. The second she stepped close, though, he reacted on instinct and shoved her away, sending the food crashing to the floor. She was clearly shaken and immediately apologized for doing something against his will, but the moment broke her, and the tears came no matter how hard she tried to stop them. She turned her head, pretending something got in her eyes, then rushed out and shut the door behind her. Still, he'd seen the tears on her face, and for the first time, something inside him actually stirred. Late that night, he got out of bed and wandered into the hallway, only to overhear the maids whispering around the corner, calling her crazy for hiding an orphan and taking care of him while getting nothing but disgust in return, even saying she'd sold expensive dresses just to buy holy water for him. And yet, they had no sympathy for their young mistress, brushing it off like it meant nothing, repeating Jenna's belief that people only change slowly over time. The orphan heard every word, turned around, and went back to his room, and the next morning, Celine was already on her way to see him again, determined to apologize for what happened the day before. The girl knocked softly on the door, came in with fresh food, and explained herself about what happened yesterday, then noticed he'd changed into clean clothes and quietly thanked him for that. Like always, she set the food tray on the nearby table and was about to leave, but before she could take a step, the guy picked up the food and slowly started eating. Celine froze, tears filling her eyes as she thanked him for trusting her, and for a while they just stayed like that, her smiling through her tears, him carefully eating his breakfast. Overjoyed, she ran back to the kitchen and told everyone that he'd finally eaten. Not much, but enough, proudly sharing her small victory with the cook and the maids, who immediately started brainstorming what nutritious and tasty dishes they could make next. Even though it was only 5 spoonfuls of porridge, everyone treated it like a miracle. Later, when the family gathered at the table, she happily reported that the orphan was recovering and slowly starting to interact, though he was still far too thin, joking that she wished she could share some of her own weight with him. She added that his overall health had improved, which made her genuinely happy. But her father frowned, noticing she hadn't touched the pocket money he'd given her, then reminded her that by the end of next month, His Highness the First Prince would be hosting a garden reception at the royal castle, and preparations would need to start soon. This was the first time Celine had ever heard of something like that, so she honestly didn't know what it meant for her, until Adele casually mentioned she was planning to go shopping next week. Celine smiled to herself, fully convinced her little sister would look amazing in the very first outfit she tried on, and without thinking, she blurted out that she wanted to pick the dress for her. The words barely left her mouth before she got embarrassed and rushed to apologize, but Adele stopped her and said she actually wanted Celine to choose it, right then and there. All the tension from the past between them came rushing back to her, and it hit Celine hard, in the best way, because it meant her sister was finally trusting her and wasn't scared anymore. Adele was so cute in that moment that Celine teared up, realizing the servants had noticed the change, and now even Adele had too, while their parents quietly enjoyed watching the sisters grow closer. Later, Celine went back to her guest and told him everything that had happened at dinner, mentioning she planned to stick to a strict diet so Adele wouldn't feel awkward next to her, especially since running around caring for the orphan had made her lose a bit of weight anyway. She was in a great mood and asked if there was anything he wanted her to buy for him, even wondering if he could read or if a simple toy might make him happy, though she felt stuck because she didn't even know his age, or even his name. For a moment, she thought maybe, as an orphan, he didn't have one at all. But then the boy slowly opened his mouth and quietly said his name was Will, and Celine lit up, thrilled that he finally trusted her, gently asking if she could call him by his name. She genuinely liked his name, and to her, it felt like proof that they'd grown a little closer, so she thanked him for trusting her and promised she'd call him by his name from now on, quietly hoping they'd keep closing that distance one small step at a time. Meanwhile, the young Prince Louis sat at his table, slowly sipping hot tea, several invitation envelopes to the upcoming ball spread out in front of him, his thoughts drifting to the fact that Miss Celine would be attending his reception, invited or not, since even the servants knew she'd show up either way. He couldn't get her words, or her apology for being so persistent the last time they met, out of his head. Not long after, the sisters headed out shopping to try on elegant outfits for the first prince's reception, and Celine was completely taken by how adorable her little sister looked in one particular dress, joking that it had to be custom-made for her because it fit too perfectly. She'd been so excited for this shopping trip, she barely slept for days, finding absolutely everything cute and wanting to buy half the store, since somehow every outfit looked amazing on Adele, making it almost impossible to pick just one. She'd saved her pocket money for this exact moment and got so wrapped up choosing for her sister that she totally forgot she needed a dress herself. Until Adele, a little shy but smiling, asked if she could pick one for Celine instead, which Celine happily agreed to, finding the novel's main heroine impossibly sweet. After a while, the girls started trying on dresses for both of them and had a genuinely great time, then stopped by a cozy coffee shop to sit, talk, and unwind over warm drinks, before wandering into an accessory store to pick out the little details they'd need for the ball. On the way back, Celine admitted she'd really enjoyed the day and had even bought a few small gifts, smiling honestly as she thanked her younger sister from the bottom of her heart and said how happy she was that they'd been able to talk so much. It felt to her like the distance between her and Adele was finally shrinking, little by little. But then out of nowhere, Adele started crying, completely catching Celine off guard. She reached out right away, worried, trying to figure out what was wrong, only for Adele to confess through her tears that she was just happy to have gone shopping together, admitting she'd always wanted them to be close and be real sisters. Celine understood instantly, pulled her into a tight hug, and broke down herself, overwhelmed by the thought that despite years of being hurt and pushed aside, Adele still wanted to be friends, and the weight of how lonely and sad her sister must have felt finally hit her, leaving both girls crying together, emotions spilling over all at once. It took them a while to calm down and pull themselves together, but from that moment on, Celine made up her mind that Adele would always come first and that she'd do everything she could to keep that sweet, kind girl happy, promising herself she'd finally be the big sister Adele deserved. After a short crying session in the carriage, their eyes were red and swollen, yet Celine still smiled as she later told Will all about her day, proudly laying out the gifts she'd brought back from the city just for him. First came clothes, since the poor kid barely had any, then some tasty sweets to help him recover faster. And because she wasn't sure what boys liked, she'd thrown in a few toys too. Before long, Will was practically buried under presents, and Celine even apologized for going overboard, admitting she'd gotten a little carried away trying to make him happy. The bond between them was clearly getting better, and he even thanked her for caring so much, which made her smile even wider as she quietly hoped that once he got healthier, they could play with the toys and share the sweets together, ending the day convinced it had truly been a happy one for her.